I have some Andersen 400 series double hungs, big windows, 4 feet wide, around 5 feet tall. They're going, I have 4 of them. I already have one in. I'm gonna show you, I probably have a blue nose now for my chalk line, but I'm gonna show you how I install these by myself, waterproof the openings, nail them off, ensure that they're shimmed on the inside so that you have an install that lasts a really long time, super durable. And again, being able to install these larger windows solo. First thing I did is I took a drill bit and I poked out my rough opening, bottom of the header in here, top of the sill. So I basically can figure out where my rough framing is, cut these from the outside. You can do it with a Sawzall on the inside. You can do it with a router. I don't feel like setting up a router, and hardwood floor subs inside there, so I don't feel like shoving a Sawzall inside of here. So poke some drill bits out, snap some lines. That's my opening. That line there, that's the top of my, or I guess the bottom of my header. This is the top of my sill, rough frame sill. And this is the inside of my jack studs. I'm gonna cut that now with the circular saw. Finish it off the Sawzall. First things first, this is gonna get stucco over here. They'll use a different paper than this, but regardless, whatever finish you're using, when I put my flashing over the sill, I wanna make sure that I have something that they can lap up underneath. So I'm gonna tack this up, and then I'll put my, my flashing for my sill on top of this, so when they come up to do the exterior finishes, they have something to tuck under and tie into the flashing. Next up is going to be our sill flashing. I'm going to mark center of this. I'm using Zip stretch here can use a bunch of different products. This works really well, really easy. I'm gonna peel this backing off, show you how I do this. I have it folded in half here, and I'll show you why. Basically, half of this, center of this, I'll start there and work my way up the sides. It's easier to start in the middle. Stuff's expensive too. So I have this sill all flashed. What you saw me do is drop this down from the center. Try not to stretch it as you put it down, just let it lie as it wants to lie. And then I stretch the corners out here, and I'll roll this. This tape is really what you want to be rolling. I'll roll this just to make sure that it's adhered properly. This stuff sticks really well. But then I'm not going to pull this up, I have it stapled, but essentially this building paper now can get lifted up because it's just stapled in. This flashing tape will also lift off with the building paper, and now whoever follows me up, whether it's a siding contractor, masonry contractor, stucco contractor, wherever it is, they can now tuck their membrane underneath of this Tyvek, and we can have one continuous drainage plane from under the windowsill out here and not have to worry about screwing anyone who's coming after me. Next up here, I like to back caulk everything. So I'm gonna take 100% silicone, and that nailing flange is gonna cover all of this. So I'm gonna take some 100% silicone, and just as a second, third line of defense, I'm gonna squirt 1/4 inch bead of this silicone behind that nailing flange. So when I drop that window in, that nailing flange will squish into this and seal the back of that flange for air and for water. I like to put a little extra in that corner where the flanges are tied together. So they're two pieces. You'll notice that I'm not siliconing the bottom. You do not want to do that. The problem if you do that and water gets behind the flange, if water gets behind the flange now, it's not an issue. Everything's waterproof on here. So if water came in here, got down to here, it can make its way out. It's not gonna rot anything. If you silicone the bottom of that flange, it has no way to weep out. So you're going to create some water issues. All right, so I'm going to unpackage this window and then get this dropped in. Oh, there's one thing I forgot since I'm installing windows by myself. So these are Andersen 400 series double hung. They have an added extension jamb, aluminum bug screen, pre-finished interior, exterior. Did I already say that? Tilt wash. Make sure nothing's damaged here. Okay, looks good to go. While you're moving this, you want to make sure that you don't damage that window flange. Get the bottom in, lean the top in, and that is what that's for. So I can now hop inside, make sure that I'm where I need to be with the window, and that it's not going to fall out. There's a few key measurements that I'm taking here. I have a bunch of windows in a row, so I want to make sure that, let's see, 44, 22 and an eighth. I want to make sure that they're evenly spaced and my trim matches, and then I have to make sure that they are level from one to the other. So I'm adjusting them based off what I already laid out. This looks like I have to go about an 1/8 inch over this way. I want to check the top that I'm level from one to the other. Looks like I'm pretty decent here, so just so this doesn't move, I'm gonna level the sill area first. Pretty good. Make sure that your window flange is tight to the wall. You can use nails or approved screws here. I like the way that nails hold. They're nice and flat. They don't stick out, but you do have to be careful that you don't hit something and damage it. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do before I shim or address anything in here, now that I have this pinned in, I'm gonna come outside and make sure that I'm level outside, and then I'm gonna tack it so I can adjust it if need be, but at least I know the window's roughly set where I want it. So now I know that I'm level from one window to the next on the tops and bottom. I check that inside. Now I wanna check how level this top is, and I can see that the window's racked. It has to go this way a little bit. So I'm gonna adjust that. And again, I'm not gonna fully nail this off. I'm just adjusting it so that it's close. Then I'll double check everything. Nice and level. Plumb, excuse me, this is not level. This is plumb. Okay, I don't need this anymore, because that'll hold itself in place. I'm gonna check the top. Good there. Level from one to the next. And I'm gonna check my diagonals to make sure that I'm nice and square. So I have 76 and maybe an eighth or so. I do have some welds on here, so pay attention to that. And I'm right around 76, so I'm pretty square. What I'll do is I'll go inside and I'll make sure that these sashes all operate well, and then what I'll do is I'll pin the centers, and then I'll go shim inside and then nail it off. So now I just want to check that my sashes operate, that there's no pinch points. Make sure that everyone clips in fine. They operate fine. And then another thing I like to do is just close them close to where they shut without pushing any one side, and then check the reveal at the bottom. If the reveal is larger on this side, smaller on this side, you know that something's racked. So I'll just gently get this close so that you can see it with your eye, and then check that shadow, and everything looks good and straight here. So I'm good to go with that. So next thing I'm gonna do, I'll pin these corners in with shims, pin the centers, and then I'm gonna double check everything outside, then I'll nail it off. Okay, so everything looks good. It's operating fine. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna nail these short sides, because I know that these are nice and straight. So I'll nail the corners. As long as you're square, the corners aren't gonna move much, so I'm gonna start there. And then what I'll do is I'm just gonna double check that I don't have a bow in here. So it looks like when I'm sitting on there, this is fairly straight here. So if I had to adjust this any because it wasn't straight, I would pull this down or push it up, again, looking at that reveal, but it's nice and straight. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure that doesn't move at all, and then I'm gonna nail right in the center, just so that locks that center in. Make sure it stays on your line. Now I can nail every other screw or nail hole. That's squeezing that flange into that silicone too. Next up, I'm gonna do the bottom. Same thing. Oh, lock the corners in. Make sure it doesn't move any. And then this stool has a 90 degree on it, or the sill. So the sill should be pretty straight, but I'm still just gonna double check. So it's nice and straight, so I'm gonna nail that off now that I have the sides locked in. I'm gonna nail that center. And then every other nail hole from there. So same thing on the sides. I know that I have my top and my bottom pinned, so they're not gonna move. So I wanna make sure that I don't have any big bows in the center. I have everything shimmed inside, so it should be good. But now's my last chance before I nail this off, and I see I'm tight here, I'm tight here, I'm tight here. So I'm gonna nail this center off so it doesn't move. And then I'll follow up and nail every other hole. Do the other one while I have the level here. Same thing, I'm checking the top and bottom. They're nice and tight. The center's perfectly straight. No gaps against my level. It's obviously plumb, we checked that earlier. So I'm gonna lock this center in. Okay, so at this point, everything's square, everything's plumb, everything's level. I can go around and I can nail off the rest of these flanges. It stink right now if I hit a window while everyone's watching me. So I'm choked up on my hammer. All right, so that's it for nailing. Double check you didn't miss anything. Again, windows functioning properly. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna take any of this extra silicone. A lot of times the tape doesn't stick that well to the silicone. So I'll just make sure that anything on the flange, like over here, that's gonna keep my tape from adhering flat, I'll just get rid of. Now I can remove my helper. Save that for the next one. Make sure that everything's nice and clean that you're going to be taping to. All right, next step, we're going to tape the sides. So this is just the acrylic flashing tape that's meant to go with this zip system. I pre-cut all my lengths, so I find it easier than trying to do it while I'm up here. Everything looks nice and neat, thought out. I'm just gonna run this below where my top one will go. Try my best to overlap it onto the frame a little bit so I can roll that corner, just to try and seal off where the applied nailing flange is. So I can seal that up really well. I'll go onto the side of the window frame a little bit with that. You don't have to go crazy. It's like anything else with this. I like to take my time, make it look nice and neat. And I have a plastic putty knife so that I don't cut this. Make sure that that corner is all tucked in there, nice and well adhered. Get a good crisp, clean corner. And then you're gonna wanna take your roller and roll this to get proper adhesion. So you work the sides first. You know, we have the bottom's left open so everything can drain out of it. Sides are going down this way, they're lapping over top of the bottom. Do both the sides, and then the top will overlap the sides. So that's the order. You're working from the bottom up to make sure that as water runs down this way, it's all lapped correctly. If you do it the other way and the tape starts to fail, or there's a gap or a crack, the water is just going to make its way into that, and then once it starts to fail, everything blows apart and it fails pretty quickly. Again, same thing. I'm going to try and roll this onto that window frame a touch, seal up that nailing flange. All right, we have the sides up, then same thing. Now the top will go on here. We're not trimming anything today, that'll be down the road. So I'll have to tie into all of these flashings when I put our trim on and our drip cap. But for now, these windows are fully waterproofed. This wall is fully waterproofed, so if it rains, it can be left out and no issue. All right, well, that wraps up installation of an Andersen 400 series double hung window. Again, pretty simple, pretty easy. This is a big window. I was able to do it by myself. Make sure your rough opening's good. Make sure that you have all of your flashings good. These windows are great windows, but they're only going to be as good as the install. So even with myself going in and out, it doesn't take that long. Again, I like to set one side so that it's nice and level. If it's sitting on the bottom, it's easier for me to level the bottom. And then I'll work my sides up and then lock my corners in, and then my centers, make sure that everything's perfectly straight, plumb, everything's square. Shim the inside, then you can nail everything off. Last thing is taping this, and at this point now you can see any water that's coming in, it all flows. You know, everything is lapped accordingly. It gets to the bottom, and then over here, this paper's loose on the bottom, so when the stucco people come to put their Jumbo Tech and rain screen, they now have something to go underneath so that that drainage plane is continuous. Only thing left to do on these windows on the inside, now that they're all set, would be to take, I like to use a low expanding foam, a window and door spray foam, and I'll insulate around the frame. I'll try and get that insulation about 1/3 of the way into the cavity, so it's close to that nailing flange. It'll support that frame, lock it in place, and then obviously air seal around that cavity. So that's the only thing that would be left for this install to button it up. Cut all your shims, insulate on the inside, and then at that point you're good to go for drywall finishes, trim finishes. Bone dry inside.